Hello, my name is Roland Waits, and the name of this video is Azure Dust. This is the name of a Ukrainian movie that was done in 2016, was re-released in 2020. It's available on Tubi, which is a free site on the internet for movies. It's inside Chernobyl's exclusion zone. It's 2016, it's Ukrainian. When you watch this movie, I encourage you to turn off the sound. Because they have captions on this. And what you see in this video is the actual buildings 30 years after the fact, what happened at Chernobyl. And frankly, some of it's really terrifying because they go into some buildings that today that are not secured and have deadly radiation in them in the amounts that can kill you. I mean, real quick like. It follows a story of a woman who was unfortunate enough to be pregnant when the Chernobyl reactor blew up. And her life story throughout this event is followed throughout this movie. And in the process of watching the movie, the first time I watched it sound off, and I read the captions. And I wasn't prepared for the ending. The ending's very positive in a way, and uplifting, and also kind of sad because the people involved in it, no doubt, will probably die of cancer very soon. Or who knows, maybe they won't. Maybe by the grace of God they'll survive. But this movie, Azure Dust, made by the people who lived there. And they were granted access through their contacts because you can go there, but you have to be, they call them a stalker. It's a strange, in the human sense it's a bad name, but in their sense, the English name means a person that escorts you through. It's their guide, but they call him a stalker, but it's a guide who takes you around wherever you want to go in the Chernobyl zone within the limitations that they know of that's safe to go in. And when you start going into places that are dangerous, then that's when they break out the suits and they break out the Geiger counters, and they always have Geiger counters with them, but they break out the really detailed Geiger counters. But it was an amazing, it was an hour, I think it was an hour and 40 minutes long, maybe, or maybe an hour and 14 minutes. Anyway, I lost track of the time because I was just, it's very slow, because if you're watching it, it's kind of slow, and you see the lady a lot in the beginning of the video, but at the end of the video, it's amazing. I don't want to give up the end of it, but in the process of watching this thing, you get to walk through the entire Prypiat city and see how it was back then. The lady lived there when she was pregnant, and your guide is telling you about the schools that were there and the kids that were there, and they superimpose pictures on what it looked like back then and what it looks like now, and they have about 2/3 of the way through the movie, they have a very terrifying trip down into the bottom of the medical center where the firemen were treated and all their clothes was thrown in the basement. And this was made in 2016. That clothes is still in the basement. Absolutely contaminated with radiation. It's still down there. And the room that it's in, before they got to the room that it's in, they had a place it's in the basement. They put it in the cellar, in the basement. And before they got to the room, they stopped at a little square on the floor. And they put the Geiger counter on it. And the Geiger counter went nuts. I mean, literally, the guy said, don't step on that. And they're walking through this place. Now, they've got the mask on, and they've got, you know, the suit on at that time. But there was a lot of other places that they walked through Chernobyl. Well, they're in Prypiat, the city that's down from Chernobyl. And then they went to Chernobyl also, and they walked through there. But it was fascinating to be on the ground and to not be in a situation where somebody, if it was a Western videographer, they would have tried to do quick cuts and make it all exciting, because they have this thing about, you know, no more than 5 seconds on screen at a time, and it makes it really hard to follow what you're looking at. Well, this videographer didn't do that. They gave you long shots. They let you see the devastation. They let you see how things were and how things are now and how things were dangerous. And all through this, you're getting a lesson in why bureaucracy is not your friend in a nuclear disaster. And even though the Communist Party is the villain in this thing, I want you to understand that today in this country, the exact same thing could happen very easily at any American nuclear reactor if we had the same type of explosion, and especially if it happened in a defense-related reactor. It would be interesting. It would not be interesting. It would be terrifying if that happened in a way that that Chernobyl happened. So please see this movie, and I recommend you turn the sound off first and relax. Sit back. It's not a fast movie. It's not an exciting movie, but it is a record of 30 years later from the accident that is terrifying in many ways, but it also underlines a fundamental triumph of the human spirit. So it's worth watching, but I would turn the sound off because it does have the kind of, well, if you don't understand Ukrainian, you're not going to get it. But the inflections are, and the talking is very, the music's very driving, you know. But it was fascinating. With the sound off and just reading what she was saying and watching her face, the way she talked about it, and the way that the guide talked about it, and the way that the people that were shooting the video talked about it, was it very, very interesting. And when they went into that basement, I felt a little bit like the scene for Prometheus where the guy was taking off the mask, you know, like this. I kind of felt like, why are you down there? Why is anyone allowed down there? Why is that not filled up with concrete all the way up to the top of the first floor? And the entire building above it, why is that not gently demolished down to the ground and then covered over with soil? Because that building is a disaster. Even today, it will kill you. And the most terrifying thing about that I got from this movie was, and he said it in the movie. He said, you kind of play poker when you go down here. You kind of play Russian roulette when you go down here, because if you get, you know, this was when they were putting their mask on, put the little paper mask on. They said if you get a little bit, if one little piece of radiation flies up off the ground in the dust and lodges in your lungs, it doesn't come out. And you can die. You can get cancer, you can die. So, Azure Dust, I watched it and I'm very untrusting. I mean, this could have been a slam piece made by Ukrainians to hammer the former Soviet Union and the communist government, which, you know, I'm not a proponent of them anyway, but it looked like it was real. It looked like the lady definitely was real. It looked like they were definitely at Chernobyl. And I was surprised that here's Prypiat right here. Here's the daggone buildings. Here's kids playing out here. And you can see in the background here where the enclosure is for the Chernobyl reactor that blew up. So they made a statement about this. They said, you know, they knew how dangerous this could have been, and they put a damn city less than a mile away. You know, it looks like it's only a mile away. You know, maybe what, 2 kilometers? Yeah, who knows? But it's close enough where you can see it. You can see the enclosure there. So it's worth to see because you're not getting your information from a guy with a mask. You're getting the information from, it's a detailed exploration of the after effects of the Chernobyl explosion by the people who actually lived it. And that's priceless because they give you anecdotal evidence of people who died from radiation poison that never got counted. I mean, the guy's talking about one kid that was getting ready to graduate and suddenly he got sick and died. Just bang, that quick. After the exposure. So I recommend you watch this, and it's not exciting, but it's very eye-opening. And the most important part is it was done by the people who actually lived it. And for the lady that's in there, God bless her. I mean, God bless her and her husband. So it's worth watching. Don't miss it when it's going to go off eventually, I'm sure. Because, you know, nobody in the nuclear industry wants this to really be exposed and expanded upon. But this needs to be known. These people need to be appreciated that they lived through this. So, Azure Dust. And this is actually, the reason this is called this is because one of the forms of radiation was falling out of the sky in this color. So, it's worth watching. Thanks. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you much.